Well, hello, welcome to Wellness by Design today. I'm Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer, and today we are talking about hair loss. What's causing it and what can we do about it? Natural solutions. A lot of people think there's nothing you can do, but I've got two people here today to talk about how that's not true. There are things we can do, and I'm really excited to share this with you. So, welcome to Julie Olson and Salena Rothenberger. Welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'm just going to read a little bit to introduce both of you so that the audience understands who you are and why I've got you on here to talk about hair loss. Julie Olson is a triple board certified nutrition expert whose mission is to help women restore their health, hope, and hair loss naturally so they can look and feel their very best. With more than 10 years of experience, along with her training in functional medicine, Julie has collaborated with functional and integrative practitioners, and she has transformed thousands of women's health and hair. Founder of Fortitude Functional Nutrition and the Women's Hair Loss Expert, Julie is known to skillfully investigate, discover, and communicate root cause resolutions to regain health and regrow hair naturally. Julie has used these same strategies to personally overcome her own health struggles of hair loss, digestive issues, and autoimmunity. And joining Julie today on this podcast is her from her team is Salena Rothenberger, a certified functional medicine practitioner whose expertise is genomics. She'll enlighten you on the myths of whether or not the genetics are linked to hair loss. Salena created Fortitude's nutrigenomic program. So, Julie and Salena, just so happy to have you here. So, I like to kind of start, Julie. I know you had your own story with hair loss, so maybe we'll talk about that first as a little lead in to why you're so passionate about this and why it's sort of
Okay.
become your calling now.
Okay. Well, I think the biggest reason is um, it started with a phone call. I was working as a senior media research analyst at Warner Brothers and got a call that my mom had stage 3 breast cancer. And I decided to move back to my hometown of Denver to support her. And I continued to work in television, but in that transition, I discovered that I was putting blinders on my own health as I looked for help, to help her for a cure, and
Right.
discovered that, lifestyle and healthy food and so forth. But I discovered autoimmunity, major digestive problems. But the worst of all was the hair loss and the fact that I was told there's nothing I could do about it except get on Rogaine or try some medications, which it doesn't get to the root cause. And so I knew something had to change. And that was really my reason for quitting my media career and going back to school to study nutrition. And now I'm so passionate about it because I don't want any other women or, people in general just to feel the way I felt, that there's nothing they can do except get on some medications that it's a lifelong sentence, or, hair transplants, or you need to get your body in balance and find root causes, with the same as with hair loss, with other, illnesses and so forth. And
Right.
so
Yeah, so
that's my
we want to get at the root causes. And
right.
so, Julie, did you find along this journey, so was it an autoimmune condition that was leading to the hair loss, and then it- did you how you did discover that there were natural solutions? So obviously, look at you now. This is your natural
Uh-huh.
hair, right? So
Right.
you've got beautiful. And if you're listening to this podcast, I'll just tell you, Julie's got these beautiful brown hair, gorgeous, thick, long locks. Like you'd envy her hair. So,
Thank
uh,
you.
so what was it, an autoimmune, or was it stress, or like is that both the same thing? Let's hear about that.
There was a combination. I was stressed out about my mother's cancer.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't realize I had a gluten sensitivity / celiac disease. So I became anemic
Yeah.
and obviously stopped absorbing my nutrients. And coupled with the stress, I mean, my hair was just falling out in clumps. It was devastating.
Wow. And it is devastating. You know, I'm sure it's devastating for men too, but for women, it's not common to see women with really thin hair and or no hair. And so it's sort of our hair's like our identity, right?
Sure.
So you did find some root solution, some solutions to the root causes. So your root cause was, well, you were dealing with the problem with your digestive tract that was stopping you from absorbing nutrients. So I know you've got the nutrition background. So is that what helped you restore your health again?
And also, just getting my stress under control. We all have stress, but mine was out of control at that point. And I just want to mention that um, through my research, I've discovered that the hair follicles are almost considered an organ because they require so much energy and so many nutrients. And they have a very, very, very high turnover, a very high metabolism. So if you're not absorbing or you're not eating those nutrients, it's so important to address that first, because what happens if you don't, we normally lose about 100 hairs a day. And
Oh,
if you let that go, if you're losing more than that for a couple of months, you need to address it, because what can happen is you have shedding, and then your hair, the follicles miniaturize. They call it miniaturization. And if that continues, then you get scarring in your hair follicles, and then it's nearly impossible to regrow your hair.
so don't ignore it, is what you're
Don't
saying.
ignore it.
If you're starting to see some hair loss, like you don't want to get to the point where those follicles aren't going to be able to produce hair anymore.
Right,
So
right. And
deal with it
people
right
run
away.
and get on medications or what have you. And another really important point is you need to first determine what type of hair loss you have. And a lot of them overlap. So I've categorized it into 4 main types.
Oh, let's hear this.
So that's digestive, inflammatory, hormonal, and stress induced.
So, how would people know what's causing their hair loss? Well, stress might be
Well,
obvious if they're under stress.
we have a quiz on our website,
Oh,
but
excellent.
it is difficult, and there's a lot of overlap. So you don't need to know exactly, but you have to have a general idea, because you can also go down the rabbit hole of doing the wrong thing. But the most important way to address it, like other functional medicine practitioners do, is to first remove any toxins within your digestive tract in your body. That's hair loss. I mean, it can be from not only those 4 categories, but things that fall within those categories, such as gut dysbiosis, parasites, H. pylori, um, uh, heavy metals, toxicity. The if you're overtraining or undertraining, you're not managing your stress, PTSD. I mean, this pandemic, this virus, post-pandemic, it's been almost a pandemic in itself. People are losing their hair like crazy. And it's the stress induced, it's the telogen effluvium. It's a stress induced hair loss. It's not like autoimmune hair loss.
Right. I
There's
think,
different types of hair loss. That's why it is important to find out what type you have.
okay, so we'll
Um,
share the link for your website where people can go do the quiz to get an idea
sure,
where what the root causes are, like what type of hair loss it is.
sure.
So I think people are probably aware in general that stress can cause hair loss, but people might not be thinking that the food that they're eating, and their gut health might have anything to do with their hair. But you're saying that's completely true. it was true for you and probably true for a lot of people. A lot of people just aren't even really linking gut health with other aspects of their health. Um,
Right.
so let's just talk about how important is it? You talked about toxins, so we know that a lot of our personal care products, and I'm going to jump right into shampoos and conditioners and sprays and things like that now.
Sure.
How much do things like that impact hair health, and also then can they contribute to hair loss?
Um, are you talking more like topical?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they contribute, but they don't contribute as much as what is going on inside you. That's contributing much, much more.
So
You
what you're
have to
eating.
address it from the inside out. And
Okay.
you can't, it's just like putting a Band-Aid on it with, you definitely want clean products without the chemicals and without gluten and so forth, but you need to address it from the inside out.
Right.
And going back to the gut. Now, to use a radical example, I have 4 studies. They're on my website. They're published medical studies of 4 different people that took that had alopecia universalis. You lose hair not only in your head but your entire body. They were all told they'd never grow their hair back, and they took what I call a gut reset. But it's becoming, you've probably heard of it. It's becoming more popular. It's a fecal microbial transplant.
Oh,
So
yes.
they actually reset their gut with some healthy poop and reset their microbiome, and all of them grew their hair back. And my favorite one is the 86-year-old man.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't think we were going to be talking about fecal transplants today. But so you're saying 4 of these studies have, with fecal transplants, people have regrown their hair. So in other words, so if you haven't heard of fecal transplants before, that's basically taking the bacteria from someone that's kind of healthy and has healthy bacteria and putting it in the colon so that it's re-inoculating your own. And there's been a
Right.
lot of great success with this. Like tell us a little bit more about that, Julie.
Well, again, it's just as an example. I mean, you can't run out and get it.
No.
Maybe more so in Canada than United States, but it's an example. So one was a 20-year-old man. He had resistant C. diff and alopecia universalis, and afterward he grew a full head of hair. And then we had a 38-year-old man, same alopecia universalis, dramatic results. Another was a 34-year-old woman who had colitis, and both those cleared up, grew back her hair. Her colitis went into remission. And then, as I said earlier, the 86-year-old man is my favorite. He actually had colon cancer, depression, and diarrhea. And 86 years old, everything was resolved. It just blows my mind.
Amazing. That's really amazing. Okay, so what are the nutrition type of changes that can you sort of talk about generally what some good nutrition changes to make for improving hair growth?
Sure. Well, you
stopping hair loss.
I mean, it's a good idea to first get some functional labs, even, do some blood work and look at them functionally. Salena can talk about that as well too, but stool testing, hormone testing, nutrient and metabolic testing, food sensitivity testing, and then genetic testing. Because if you don't remove whatever is getting you out of balance, you can eat these healthy foods. And I see it all the time. Like these women come into me and they're eating great. But once I start doing some functional labs, it's, you're not absorbing your protein. You're not absorbing your healthy fat. You're not absorbing, certain nutrients that are needed, are vital for hair growth. And so, I mean, and I also have a handout on the top 11 nutrients for hair loss, for healthy hair. But again, it's almost like putting a Band-Aid on it if you don't get to the root cause first. Right. It's just, let's throw in all this food and hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, people always say the expression is "you are what you eat," but it's really "you are what you absorb." Because if you're
Right,
not absorbing
exactly,
the great food that
exactly.
you're eating, well, it doesn't really matter then, right? You're probably just feeding
Right,
more bacteria. Um,
exactly.
yeah, so a lot of people, I want to get Selena's input now. So a lot of people will think that, yeah, thin hairs in my family, nothing I can do. My father was bald, I'm bald, or, my mother had thin hair, so, and lost her hair in her 70s, so I will too. Like, what do you say to that, Selena? I know you're the expert in genomics, so let's hear a little bit about the gene side. Like, are we a victim of our genes when it comes to our hair?
Yes, on our hair. No, we are not. So there are some genes that are disease genes, and those genes we're not going to be able to influence. The genes that we are looking at, though, are those metabolic genes. And this is where that nutrition plays that key role, because these are enzymes that's for our metabolism. And how are we going to access those nutrients? Are we breaking them down? Are we utilizing them? So while we, like you guys mentioned earlier, about we can eat the best foods, but if you can't do anything with them, it really is not doing any good. And so when we start looking at the genes that are breaking, the processing the B12, so converting the B12 so that it's a methylated form that's an active form, or the same like with folate, you hear a lot about that MTHFR gene. That's that last step of taking the folate that we eat, and then it goes through several different enzymes. And then that MTHFR makes it a methyl form, which is an active form, and it combines with methyl B12, with zinc, with homocysteine to keep methylation going and the methionine cycle going. And there's a lot of recycling that happens. So when we look at the nutrients, we need to be eating folate, but if you can't convert it, then that's where there's a problem, and why it's important that we also look at the genes to see, okay, why is somebody, they're eating the best foods, why are they not, having the success that they should be having? Maybe we get their gut health in order, but they're still not having maybe this, that top success. And so understanding how these genes work, and to also to not just treat the SNPs, that we can influence these genes. It's about the context of them. We may have a pattern of having these variations in our genes. Instead of having maybe a 4-lane highway, we're having a 1-lane highway or a 2-lane highway, but it's about context too. And so, a 4-lane highway in Los Angeles at rush hour, it's going to be stopped up, where a 1-lane highway out in West Texas, is going to be smooth sailing. So it's kind of looking at both sides of that, and why we do that whole holistic approach with Julie, that I love working with her, is because it's not just, oh, we're going to look at the nutrient thing and that's it. We're going to look at your nutrients, your stool, your genes. How are these things all interconnected? Because it's so vital. And one thing is like on digestive health, looking at a gene that's called your FUT2 SNPs, and those FUT2s are going to support, can you even support a healthy microbiome? Like your bifidobacterium can be negatively affected if you have some SNPs there. And those also can translate over into issues with B12. So it's not just, that MTHFR, there's just so many different genes or things with histamine. It's just looking at all of those different pictures of how our body works, what can we do to influence that? And that's where we take away the negatives of, the toxins, but then we also are going to put in the good foods.
So, for the
And
audience that's not really aware of or not into genes and the study of genes, explain what SNPs are and explain what MTHFR
HFR.
is.
Yeah, yes. So SNPs are single nucleotide polymorphism. So it just stands for those words. And so those are just a variation. So we get a gene from each parent. So we all have like what they call 2 copies. And a normal gene is called the wild type, which I think is totally backwards. So you think wild child is all crazy, but the wild type is your normal gene. And then a SNP, that variation, you're going to have one that's abnormal or a variation. And then 2 of them is a homozygous, and that's when you get a different variation from each parent. So you got 2 variants that are not that wild type. And so generally speaking, and there's so many exceptions, but as a general rule, when you have a variation, that's going to somehow alter function, or it could potentially alter the function, and it's usually a decreased function. So you might, like I said, that 4-lane highway would be your normal. You may have a 2-lane or a 1-lane highway. There are plenty of SNPs where there's zero impact to that. And so again, that's where it is important to work with somebody who understands, okay, we have a variation here, but it's sort of like having how we have the different languages, like color in English is COLOR, but over in Europe it's COOLOUR. It doesn't
Canada,
really
too.
change anything. So
Yeah.
we have to kind of understand which of these genes do affect it and which ones don't. And then what kind of an impact? Is this going to be an upregulation, like an inflammation with an IL-6, for instance? That's going to give you like a hyper-inflammatory response. If you can't resolve it because your body can't make the antioxidants, you've got a one-lane highway for making glutathione. Now you have like over-inflammation and you don't have enough firemen to come, take care of hosing down that fire. So understanding both the sides, that we can have genes that make things go faster or we have them go slower. And I think, was there another part to your question? I can't remember
Well,
now. Sorry.
I'm just thinking that.
MTHFR was what the other one was.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. We'll
So-
get to that in a second. I want to kind of point out the fact that you're talking about the genes, sort of, we have our genes, but they aren't our destiny. In other words, they can behave in different ways based on the environment that they're bathed in, which is us. And that includes our foods and our thoughts and our feelings and the stress and all these other things that are going on. So I kind of want to bring it back to that big picture of, you aren't a victim of your genes, even if you have some of these SNPs, that it's almost like I've heard it described as dimmer switches. So whether they're dimming up or dimming down depends on the environment, and you can change the environment. So let's understand that you're not a victim. You can control that environment and then control the expression of those genes. All right, so let's get into this. I remember hearing about the MTHFR.
Can I just add something real quick?
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
mean to interrupt you. I can just add something real quick, because there's been a number of studies showing genetically identical twins, one going bald and the other not at all. And people moving to United States from third world countries are reporting hair loss despite no genetic links.
Wow.
And even college students, 60% of college students in China now are reporting hair loss, where baldness rates were very, very low. I mean, the incidence of hair loss is rising all over the country. So I wanted to add that.
Okay.
It's about the context. It's all about context. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So something is changing in our environment, right? Over the last, however many years, or in China, as you mentioned, there's something changing in that environment. Like maybe they're under more stress. Maybe it's the type of food they're eating. Maybe these people that are immigrating to the US, maybe they're changing the type of food they're eating. Maybe they're eating a lot of hamburgers and French fries now. I don't know.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So then that's changing the environment. So that's changing the expression of their genes.
And it's
All right,
changing
so-
their microbiome.
And the microbiome, yeah, and the microbiome, I believe, from what I understand, is directly impacts the expression of our genes too, right? So it all like kind of comes together. In fact, I mean, I've heard people say that the bacteria in our gut kind of speaks to the bacteria, the ancient bacteria, which is the mitochondria in the cells. And so they're passing information on too. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you start thinking about this little microscopic world and what might be going on there, but they do know that there's communication. So that's totally fascinating. Okay.
And now they've even discovered a scalp hair follicle microbiome.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. Most of us think of the microbiome as being in the gut, but really we've got bacteria all over us, right?
Right.
It's just most of them are in the gut, but we got bacteria on our skin. I don't know if you remember these shows years and years ago where they used to like zoom in, magnify in on skin or on your eyes to show you all the bacteria, and you get all creepy crawly from it because wow, there's a lot going on there. There's whole colonies in these little worlds. Okay, so let's talk about MTHFR, that was, I remember reading about that. A lot of people call it the mother gene, because it's a SNP, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a gene.
Oh, it's
so
a gene.
MTHFR is a gene. We all have MTHFR. Now there's variants in that gene. And so that's where I think people they think, oh, I got MTHFR. That's a problem. No, you better have MTHFR. You're not going to be alive. So. Okay,
let's hear how those variations can affect us.
Yep. So the MTHFR, like you said, is a gene. We all have MTHFR. If you don't have that gene, you will not survive. So the variations on that, there's a couple different ways that it works. There's two main ones that are like the celebrity MTHFR genes. There's many different what they call RSID numbers. It's kind of like having different houses on a block. And so your two main ones are the 1298 and the 677. So one of them can affect that methylation that I spoke about earlier with B12. So methylfolate, methyl B12. If you have that MTHFR, like a homozygous SNP, that can reduce it down like between 60 and 80% of function. So you're eating that great folate, but you're not getting enough of that methylfolate conversion so that you can support methylation and keep things moving for detoxing, for your hormones, for your neurotransmitters, those things. There's a lot of bidirectional signaling that's happening, like mitochondria in the microbiome. The same is happening with our metabolism and these genes. So if you have the wild type gene, there's, potentially no problem. But again, you could have a perfectly fine MTHFR gene and still have problems with the MTHFR not converting because of the environment. So it's about that SNP. Do you have a variation? Do you not? What's the context of it? And so that's where it comes to supporting both. So that middle heterozygous is about a 40% reduction in the function, but it comes down to, we can influence this by the nutrients the foods that we're eating, the stress, do we have good self-care, the toxic exposures, all of those things put more demand for that pathway to work. So the less demand, then if it's a homozygous SNP, then it doesn't need to produce as much. But at the same time, if we have, tons of exposure, tons of stress, we're never stopping, taking care of ourselves, eating bad foods, there's so much demand there, it's really going to show itself. But we have the way to influence that. And so that's where, it's not our destiny, and we can do things about that.
Ah, that's such good news. Such good news. Okay, so I'll come back to Julie now. So Julie, are there some things that people can do that are, generally going to be helpful for everyone across the board, no matter what their source of the root cause of the hair loss is, or what type of hair loss it is? Are there some things that everyone can do that's going to help? I mean, sounds like reduced stress is a great one.
Yeah, absolutely. Get some laughter in your life. Lighten up. But number one, I would say, is protein, but that animal protein, because they have the branch chain amino acids. It's essential for hair growth. So being a vegan, being a vegetarian, it's difficult. There are a lot of vegans and vegetarians lose it because they're not getting that branch chain amino acids. And you need a minimum of 20 grams of protein, animal protein, with all the branch chain amino acids at every meal. That's number one. Our hair is mostly protein.
Yeah. Okay. And so I'm just going to put this out there for people, the vegans and the vegetarians that are out there, because some of them are not going to have animal protein. They're just not going to change.
Sure.
So like just taking a B12 supplement or something like that.
You can actually supplement with branch chain amino acids.
Okay. And so when you say branch chain amino acids, is that B12? I'm not sure what
No, amino acids are like L-lysine and Salena, jump in here.
Methionine, tryptophan. So like methionine is important, because that's the next step, is what methylfolate, methyl B12 make methionine. That's an amino acid. And so it's your protein. So your methionine, tryptophan, tyrosine, it's usually your enes, the INEs are part of those amino acids, cysteine, glutamine, those, and doing a blend of them, because you want to help support all of your genes and all your metabolism. And so the B12 is important. Why you see that also a lot in vegans and vegetarians is because that's the component of that methyl B12, methylfolate, to make that methionine. And it's just such a critical process. Like methylation is at the core of almost every single process in our body. And so that's where you see those things, happening. So amino acids help support that, help support making glutathione. Like you've got to have amino acids for that. And so but yeah, that's your proteins.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So protein is one. What else would you say, Julie?
Vitamin D, vitamin A, the fat soluble nutrients, think a DEK, ADEK. And again, you have to whether, okay, say a vegetarian supplementing with those, you have to have them, you have to take them with a healthy fat or they don't absorb.
Right.
That's why Selena's saying food works together synergistically. You just can't grab a bunch of supplements and call it a day.
Yeah.
And the B vitamins, especially niacin, the flushing type, because one of the problems with hair loss is you're not getting the blood circulating to your scalp appropriately. So you're not getting those nutrients up there. So not the flushing niacin really helps with that. And it dilates the capillaries that also get the buildup of DHT and calcium that will inhibit hair growth. And all the B vitamins, iron, but you have to be careful with that too, because you can get too little iron and lose hair, or too much iron and lose hair. So getting a whole iron panel is very important. The fatty acids, the good omegas, even the good healthy omega-6s, that's very important because deficiencies cause hair loss and even lightening of hair color. Selenium, manganese, selenium aids in the formation of hair follicles and protection against damage. Manganese deficiencies can lead to really slow hair growth. But it's interesting. Vitamin E, it's interesting. Most of these nutrients you get from animal protein. I mean, liver covers almost all of it.
Oh, wow.
Even red meat. Zinc is very important for hair growth too. It's involved in tissue growth, including hair. You have to have a balance. You don't want your copper too high. You do need some copper, but getting it out of balance is also going to wreak havoc. So it goes back to what's going on in your gut. Are you even absorbing these nutrients? So we go through the 5-phase approach. We first remove the toxins, then we replace, re-inoculate, repair, and rebalance.
Yeah, that's a basic functional medicine model
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So we've got the proteins, we've got lower stress. Are there any other like lifestyle things people can do to help encourage long, healthy locks?
Sure. I mean, there's massage. There's a
The best.
I had one.
Those are the best.
Good. It feels so good. A
They
silk
feel
pillowcase. It's good for your hair and your skin.
Silk my kids love the silk. Like whenever we travel, we take our silk pillowcases with us. And so, yeah, like you can't go wrong with a silk pillowcase. Absolutely.
pillowcase.
Everyone needs one. Like you also need silk sheets, which they're kind of pricey. I'm like saving up for those, but definitely a silk pillowcase.
How does the silk help? I'm curious.
Because it retains the moisture in your hair and your skin up to 43%.
So cotton's kind of sucks it out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
And also it doesn't pull on your hair. Cotton pulls on your hair. Anything that pulls on your hair makes it more brittle and prone to breaking off and thinning.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you another question now. This might be totally not anything to do with what you do, but I often like stick my hair up at night because I just don't like it around my neck. Can that contribute to hair loss?
It can. I do the same thing because it bothers me. I mean, I go around. It does.
A silk head cap would help, like to have a silk,
Sure.
Oh, like they did in the old days.
Yes.
All right. I did not know this about silk pillowcases.
So essential oils too, topical essential oils, and emu oil is you can mix it with like rosemary, frankincense, peppermint. It helps stimulate hair growth.
Oh my gosh, that's great to know too. So
yeah.
Rosemary, peppermint, and what was the other one?
Frankincense.
And frankincense. Okay.
Those are the main ones.
Those
I mean,
top ones.
there's more, but those are the main ones. And then this is that derma roller. You've got to get that circulation going. I think another reason people are losing hair is people are sitting around all day. They're not out and about. I bet this is a little, that I haven't opened it, but it just rolls on your scalp and it stimulates it.
It's exercise for we exercise the rest of our body, but exercising the scalp and the follicles.
Yeah.
Or standing on your head or your hands or an inversion table for 3 minutes a day. That gets all the the nutrients up there.
Yeah. I mean,
Helps with
as we're
brain health
talking
too.
about this, it makes so much sense, right? Like we want to like feed the basic nutrients. We want to make sure
Right.
we're absorbing the nutrients. We want to
Sure.
get some circulation going up there as well in all these different ways, movement, inversions, massage or stimulating. So some really, really great suggestions here. All right, so we're getting close to the end now. So I want to ask both of you. I always ask my guests, what's one thing someone could do today to improve their health? And you can say answer this in general, or you can be specific to hair. So I'm going to go to you first, Salena. What's your suggestion?
So my suggestion, that was so crazy hard to do that one thing, right? So the
It is.
one thing is, oh my, yeah, I was hoping to be second.
Well, we already talked about it. Is laughter and lighten
Laughter,
up.
yeah, laughter's usually my top one is the laughter, because that shifts your body from that parasympathetic state or I'm sorry, from the sympathetic state to the parasympathetic state. And so laughter, self-care, like that belly laugh, doing things that you enjoy, that is just so transformative of truly just that good laughter.
I love it. I love it. What about you, Julie?
Um, I mean, I agree. I think I'm modulating your stress, and you can do that with laughter and lightening up, because at the end of the day, if you're not absorbing your nutrients because you're stressed out, like most people are, and that's another reason I ended up losing my hair, is I was just go, go, go and never slow down until something drastic happened. So we all have stress, but do something. And I like that the best as well. Lighten up, have some laughter, don't take life so seriously.
That's really great. Thanks, both of you. Now, I know you've got this free e-guide. So tell us a little bit about the guide, and we'll have the link there for people to get it.
Sure. So it's going to have the top 10 things you can do now for hair loss, to address hair loss now. It's going to have the four main reasons, and a guide to that, we talked about before, the inflammation, digestive, stress induced, and hormonal. It's let's see, it's got a lot of tips and tricks. What else does it have in there, Salena?
I think I guess there are also what you can do now, and identifying your different types of hair loss and the steps to this orders the steps of what you need to do. Like if you start addressing certain areas and you haven't laid the foundation, you're going to spin your wheels. And so and uncovering some of the myths of, okay, is there anything I can do about this? Are my genes my destiny? No. And so it gives you kind of that whole a big snapshot of everything what you need to know about hair loss.
Okay, that is great. So we'll have the link there for everyone. And so where's the best place for people to find you, follow you? Can we hear your website or your social media?
Sure. My website and social media are virtually the same. You can go to Julie Olson, OLSON.net. So julieolson.net to reach the websites. And then my social media handle is Julie Olson FN for functional nutritionist.
Okay, perfect. What about you, Salena?
So you can find me on Julie's site. So go to Julie's site. Yeah, you'll find me there.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you to both of you for being a guest on Wellness by Design today. It's a tough topic, right? This hair loss, but so important to people, especially when you're losing hair. It might be one of the only things you're thinking about is, how can I deal with this? How can I stop it? And so you've really given people some great insights today. So thank you so much, both of you, for being a guest on Wellness by Design today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And thanks to the audience. And don't forget to share this with someone. If you know someone that's suffering from hair loss, please share this with them so that they have hope. They'll know that there's something that they can do. All right. Thanks very much. We'll see you later.